Welcome to this deep dive. We're heading way back to ancient Greece, to a conversation noted down by Euclid.
That's right. It happened in Megara, but it's about a chat Socrates had in Athens. And the timing is, well, pretty crucial, just before his trial.
Right, that definitely adds some weight. And the focus is on this young man, Theaetetus.
Yes, Theaetetus. We hear right away he's been brought back from fighting at Corinth, badly wounded, sick, just a young guy when this original talk happened.
And Socrates apparently saw something special in him, predicted he'd be great.
He did, though the source adds rather sadly that he didn't live long enough to, fully realize that potential. It sets a poignant tone.
It really does. So our goal today is to get into this discussion, Socrates, Theaetetus, and also Theodorus, the geometrician.
Exactly. They're tackling the big one. What actually is knowledge?
We're going to follow their journey,
Mm-hmm.
look at the definitions they try out, and see how Socrates uses his midwifery method to test them.
Helping them give birth to their ideas, yeah. To see if they're, well, solid or just winged eggs, as he puts it. We might not get a final answer, but the process itself is fascinating.
Okay, let's jump in. Where does Theaetetus start things off?
He puts forward a pretty bold idea, actually. He says knowledge is just perception. Simple as that.
What you see, hear, feel, that's knowing.
Exactly. And, this wasn't totally out of the blue. It ties into some big philosophical ideas floating around then.
Like Protagoras.
Precisely. Protagoras is famous, man is the measure of all things, meaning what appears true to you, well, it is true for you. Your perception is your reality.
And there's also that Heracleitian idea, all about change.
All is motion, constant flux, like Homer's rivers, Oceanus and Tethys, always flowing, nothing stays the same.
So how do those two connect? Flux and man is the measure.
Well, if everything is constantly changing, then maybe the only thing you can possibly grasp is your immediate perception in this moment.
Ah, I see.
And if Protagoras is right, that perception, however fleeting, is your truth, your knowledge. It all seems to fit together initially.
Okay, so that's the starting point. Knowledge is perception tied to subjectivity and flux. But Socrates wouldn't just leave it there, right?
Oh, definitely not. Here comes the midwife to examine the baby. He starts probing the implications.
With that, another funny argument.
Yeah, the tadpole argument, as you call it earlier, or
Yeah.
maybe pig or baboon argument. If perception is knowledge, and everyone's perception is their own measure.
Then isn't a pig's perception just as valid as knowledge as, say, Protagoras's?
Exactly. Why pay teachers like Protagoras if everyone's perception is already knowledge? It kind of undermines the whole idea of wisdom or expertise, doesn't it?
It certainly seems to level things in an unhelpful way.
Right. And then he brings up things like dreams, or madness, or even just illusions, like a mirage.
In those states, you're definitely perceiving things.
Absolutely. But those perceptions are often clearly false, right? They don't match up with reality. So if knowledge is perception, does that mean you can have false knowledge?
That sounds like a contradiction in terms, knowing something false.
It really does. It's a major snag for the theory. And then there's the memory problem. This one's quite clever.
Okay, how does that work?
Imagine you see something, say a tree. According to the definition, you perceive it, therefore you know it. Now, close your eyes.
Okay. I'm not perceiving the tree anymore.
Right. So if perception is knowledge and you're not perceiving it, you shouldn't know it anymore.
But I remember it. I still know what I saw.
Exactly. Socrates calls it a monstrous impossibility that you could remember something you don't currently know, if knowing is only perceiving. It suggests memory is something more than just current perception.
These are pretty strong arguments against the perception idea.
They are. But Socrates, or rather Plato writing this, anticipates how someone like Protagoras might try to defend it.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, Protagoras might argue, maybe playing on the flux idea, that the person remembering isn't quite the same person who perceived it moments ago. Constant change,
Bit tricky.
A bit. But more substantially, he might say, look, yes, sensations are relative, true for the individual. But the role of the wise person isn't to change false perceptions to true ones.
Because all perceptions are true for the perceiver.
Right. Instead, the wise person, like a doctor for the body or a sophist for the city, changes a worse state to a better one. They guide you towards more beneficial or advantageous perceptions or beliefs.
So wisdom isn't about objective truth, but about improving the subjective state, making better things appear true or just.
That seems to be the gist of the imagined defense. What appears just to a city is just for that city, but a wise advisor can make something better appear just instead. But even this sophisticated defense runs into trouble.
How so?
Well, what if you take that Heraclitean flux idea to its absolute extreme, if everything is changing in every way constantly?
Total, absolute chaos.
Pretty much. In that scenario, language itself couldn't work. You couldn't say, this is white, because the this and the white would have changed before you even finished speaking.
You couldn't pin anything down, even for a second.
Exactly. If nothing has any stability at all, how could you even form a perception? Perception itself seems to require some element of stability to grasp onto.
I'm trying to grab smoke, yeah.
And this leads to the biggest blow against the perception theory, the role of the mind. Socrates argues our senses aren't just like passive openings, the holes in a Trojan horse analogy.
They're tools.
Instruments the mind uses. The mind isn't just receiving data passively, it's active. It grasps things the senses alone can't give us.
Like abstract ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Things like being or sameness, difference, unity, number. You don't see sameness with your eyes or hear difference with your ears.
The mind figures those out by reflecting on the sense data.
That's the idea. The soul, the mind, learns these by reflecting on sense impressions. And crucially, attaining truth, grasping what is, requires this kind of reasoning about impressions.
Not just having the raw sensations.
Right. Perception alone, Socrates argues, doesn't reach truth or being. So it can't be knowledge.
Wow, okay, so that really dismantles the knowledge is perception idea quite thoroughly. It shows knowledge needs, well, more than just senses. It needs the mind actively working.
Absolutely. The mind's ability to process, to grasp universals, that's essential.
So with perception off the table, where do they go next? What's the second attempt?
Well, if it's not just raw sensation, maybe it's about judgment or belief. The next suggestion is, knowledge is true opinion.
Having a belief that happens to be correct.
Exactly. Seems plausible, right? If you believe something and it's actually true, maybe that's knowledge.
But Socrates finds a problem here too. I think I remember the law court example.
Yes, the law courts. It's a great test case. Think about judges listening to lawyers argue about a crime they didn't see.
Okay.
A skilled lawyer might persuade the judges, using evidence and rhetoric, to form a true opinion about what happened. They might correctly believe who committed the crime.
So they reached the right conclusion. Their opinion is true.
Yes. But do they know what happened in the same way someone who actually witnessed the crime knows it?
Probably not. It feels different. It's belief based on persuasion, not direct experience.
Precisely. The judges have true opinion, they judged correctly, but they lack the direct knowledge an eyewitness has. This suggests true opinion by itself isn't the same as knowledge.
You can have one without the other. Okay, so strike two for defining knowledge. Where does that leave them?
Well, if true opinion alone isn't enough, maybe it's true opinion plus something else.
An extra ingredient.
Yeah. The third attempt is, knowledge is true opinion with some kind of definition or explanation. The Greek word they use is logos.
True opinion plus a logos. Okay. What does logos mean here?
That's the tricky part. They explore a few possibilities. First, maybe logos just means being able to express your opinion in speech.
Just saying it out loud.
Basically. But Socrates shoots that down pretty quickly. He points out that if that were knowledge, pretty much anyone who can talk would be knowledgeable. And that's obviously not true. Simply voicing an opinion doesn't make it knowledge.
Okay, that makes sense. Too simple. What's the second meaning of logos they try?
This one is about enumeration of elements, defining something by listing its basic parts.
Like knowing the letters to know a syllable, or knowing all the planks to know a wagon.
Exactly. The idea is you know the complex thing by knowing its simple components. You can give an account of its parts.
That sounds more like understanding, doesn't it?
Yep.
Analyzing something.
It does feel closer. But again, Socrates finds issues. For one, isn't it a bit circular? How can you claim to know the whole compound if you don't already know the simple elements?
Ah, right.
And even if you can list the elements correctly, have a true opinion about them, does that mean you truly know them? Or how they specifically combine to make this particular whole?
Like knowing the letters T, H, E doesn't mean you know the difference between the syllable the in Theaetetus versus Theodorus.
Precisely. You might have the parts right, but still confuse how they form the unique whole. So just listing elements isn't quite enough for knowledge either.
Okay, so listing parts doesn't work. What's the third and final try for logos?
The last idea is that logos means being able to state the mark, the distinguishing feature that separates this thing from everything else.
So knowledge is true opinion plus identifying the unique difference.
Yeah. You have the right belief, and D, you can point out what makes it distinct.
That seems like a strong contender. Is that it?
Well, Socrates argues this one is also problematic. He says, if you already have a true opinion about something specific, say Theaetetus.
Don't you already have to grasp what makes him Theaetetus and not someone else?
Exactly. If your opinion is truly about Theaetetus, it must already implicitly contain his distinguishing features. Otherwise, what is your opinion actually of?
So adding the perception of difference is redundant. It's already baked into having the true opinion in the first place.
That's the argument. It doesn't add anything new to elevate true opinion to knowledge. It's like, as the source puts it, adding speech to speech, or the blind leading the blind.
So after all that, perception fails, true opinion plus logos in all its forms also fails. They don't arrive at a definition.
They don't. The dialogue famously ends without a successful definition. It's what philosophers call an aporetic dialogue, ending in a state of impasse or puzzlement.
And throughout this, didn't they keep bumping up against the difficulty of explaining false opinion itself?
Yes, that's a recurring theme. How is error even possible if thinking is about grasping reality? They use analogies, like the mind as a wax block where impressions can get blurred or mismatched.
Or the aviary, where you have knowledge, birds, but grab the wrong one.
Right. You possess the knowledge, like birds in a cage, but you mistakenly select the wrong bird, concept or piece of knowledge, when trying to apply it. These analogies help picture how mistakes might happen.
But they don't fully solve the fundamental puzzle of how you can mistake something you supposedly know or possess in your mind.
Exactly. It highlights the deep difficulties in understanding belief, error, and knowledge itself.
So, ending without an answer. Is that just frustrating or is there value in that?
Oh, there's immense value. And the source stresses this. The negative result is actually really important. It clears away the easy, common sense answers.
It shows you what knowledge isn't.
Precisely. It reveals the sheer complexity of the question. It forces you to confront the difficulties rather than settling for a superficial definition. You see the philosophical landscape more clearly.
And it reflects the intellectual climate of the time, right? Grappling with these huge abstract ideas, flux versus stability, the nature of the mind.
Absolutely. Plato is navigating these debates. And even in failure, the dialogue offers amazing insights into psychology, that crucial distinction between raw sensation and the mind's active role.
Recognizing that the mind deals with universals, things like being, sameness.
Yes, and even the idea of thought as the mind talking to itself. These are profound steps in trying to understand our own mental processes, acknowledging it's a complex thing that took centuries to unravel further.
Okay, so recapping our deep dive. We followed Socrates and Theaetetus, trying to pin down knowledge. Perception, nope. True opinion, not quite. True opinion plus explanation, still problematic.
And Socrates' method, like that midwife, showed each of these attempts was, in his terms, a wind egg, not a viable definition.
But even without landing on the definition, you come away with a much deeper appreciation for the challenge, and you see these incredible early insights into how we perceive, think, and process the world.
It really underscores why philosophy often focuses as much on clarifying the question as finding the answer. Sometimes understanding why something is difficult is the most important step.
So, given how tough Plato shows it is to define knowledge, to separate it from mere perception or opinion, here's something for you to ponder. In your own experience, when you feel you know something versus just having an opinion, what makes the difference for you? How do you draw that line in your own life and learning?
And just to wrap up where the dialogue itself ends, it's quite dramatic, actually. Socrates concludes the conversation because he has to leave.
Oh, where's he going?
He tells Theodorus and Theaetetus he needs to go to the King Archon's porch. He's been summoned to answer the indictment brought against him by Miletus.
Wow. That's the charge that led to his execution.
It is a really sobering end to the philosophical discussion. But even then, facing that, he promises to meet them again the next day to continue their inquiry. Ever the philosopher.